Croeso, hello, welcome to RobRyanRed, the Wrexham podcast, brought to you by Red 10 People Development. Preseason has begun. Myself and Nath will be in Vancouver next week. Nath, you were in Hanley at the weekend. How was that as preparation for North America?
I mean, probably the same, exactly the same. I'm expecting to be stood on a grassy mound in the rain in Vancouver. I felt like I was almost there, Rich. No, in all seriousness, Hanley, lots of fun. Very sorry you weren't well enough to make it.
I guess that's the place to start. Of course, we will look at our new signs on today's podcast. We've got a Villa fan on the new man, Raven. We'll find out how to pronounce his name perhaps as well. Look ahead to the Bournemouth game as well. And we also play Chelsea by the time we next record. We'll be recording our next podcast from Vancouver almost immediately after that Chelsea game. So you'll be able to get analysis of our first two North American matches on the next pod. But yeah, Nath, Hanley, there was, a record attendance there. We've spoken about how the game came about. Of course, that was all on last week's podcast. For you, who were the standout performers? Anyone who concerned you at all? Or what did you read from it? Because, of course, pre-season is largely just a fitness-building exercise, isn't it?
My standout performers were the 5 women that worked in a little catering stand before the match, who had an excellent system to get all the cheeseburgers and chips out that were very, very good. So they were my MVPs of the whole operation. No, in all seriousness, Rich, it was a good day. I was slightly worried when it started to tip down and there was 2 very small shed-like stands that were quickly filled up, and the rest of us were having to make do with what we had, the cagoule, the jackets. But no, it was very, very good fun. I think for the first half, I was chatting to a few people before and we spoke on the podcast and they were asking me about that, Rich, of what we've been saying about Marriott and how it's a big pre-season for him. Mullen, the only player that's not gone on the US tour. They're out there now, the players, men and women in Beverly Hills of all places, very much enjoying soaking it up. We're talking a lot about Marriott and how he really needs to hit the ground running. And I think he'll have been frustrated. I don't know about frustrated. It's the first 45 minutes of pre-season, isn't it? But he would have wanted a goal, and I think I would much rather have been in that second half group where you were against tiring legs. Jordan Davis really impressed me. I thought he, was bright, lively. Phil Parkinson was only a few yards away from me, Rich. I was stood sort of to the left of the Wrexham dugout, and he was very vocal in praising Jordan, and I think it was noted with the people that I was with that maybe that is a shift this year. Maybe Parky's realised that he needs to be more nurturing with Jordan. Maybe that is a change in approach with him. Again, it's one game. We need to see how it plays out. Aaron James at the back was up against Tom Pope for a lot of it. A physical mismatch if I've ever seen one. He looked very good. And then a couple of the young lads. James Rainbird, who was playing at left back in the second half. I thought he was really good. Got an assist for Sam Dolby's first time finish. That was a really nice, well-worked move, which was started off by Jordan. And who else am I going to pick out? Probably the most popular player on the day was Billy Waters. He had his own little fan club behind the goal who cheered every touch and were trying to suck the ball into the goal that they were behind. But unfortunately, no goal for Billy Waters on the day. So 1 for Jake Bickerstaff, 1 for Sam Dolby, 2 for Jordan Davis, and 1 for James McLean from a brilliant corner. So all in all, really positive day's work on a really, really good pitch.
Yeah, it looked like a cracking setup. Like I said, I was gutted that I came down with the flu the morning of the match, really, and just couldn't face. As much as I love watching Wrexham, there's some games that I'm happy to miss. I think Hanley Town, sadly, was one of them. They did still get my money for a ticket because I was unable to shift that, sadly. I guess that's the difficulty, isn't it, Nath? That first game of pre-season, it's hard to read too much into what we did see. Were you surprised by how strong the side was, really? I mean, Parky did sort of mix up quite nicely, having sort of more established players in each half. But what do you reckon, given that the new season is less than a month away now? We've got loads of games thick and fast at the start of the season. Was it noticeable how much work is still to be done? Was the sharpness not there at all? Could you see there was a Vegas hangover on the players still or not?
I couldn't see a Vegas hangover on the players still. I think it was really interesting because the Hanley chairman, Ron, was on last week's podcast where he let slip that we were due to play Liverpool, and Parky spoke last week about they were due to play a Premier League team behind closed doors, and probably similar to that Man United game, Rich, where Aaron Hayden famously scores the header and does the Cristiano Ronaldo C celebration in front of a watching Ronaldo. That was obviously a great tale from a previous season. So we were probably going to play Liverpool, which would have been a different challenge. I think it was probably good that we got to play somebody where we dominated the ball We got to practice a lot of repetitions in terms of our build-up play, how we would be able to switch the play, move the ball about. Whereas I think on the tour you're going to play Chelsea, where we won't have much of the ball. That's Enzo Maresca's first game. And we're going to play Bournemouth, where we probably again won't have much of the ball. Iraola's had a brilliant first season with Bournemouth, and they're going to dominate the ball. And then the Whitecaps, that could go either way. So what I found really intriguing against Hanley, Rich, was a couple of things. The impact of the youngsters, that I thought that was really good, really positive, especially if you're looking towards those Bristol Street Motors games against Salford, against is it Wolves under 21s, and then against Port Vale. I think they're thoroughly deserving of a chance. Harry Ashfield in particular looked really, really good in there, and he actually came on much earlier than anticipated because of an injury to Elliot Lee, which not serious, but again we were all holding our breath. And I think the other thing that was really interesting was, yes, it was strong, but it was sort of, we were missing a few players, missing Lewis Brunt, didn't get to see him, missing Tom O'Connor, missing Will Boyle, and it sort of meant 3-5-2 in each half wasn't possible. So he went with a 4-4-2 diamond in the first half and a 4-3-3 sort of attacking setup in the second half, with Billy Waters and Jake Bickerstaff either side of Sam Dolby. And in the first half, a diamond, George Dobson at the base of the diamond, James Jones on the right, Elliot Lee off the left, and Callum Edwards at the tip of the diamond behind Palmer and Marriott. And, you know, you and I both expect it will still be a 3-5-2 come Wycombe on the opening day. But I found a back four very, very interesting. Yeah, I don't know what you thought about that. I know I put on Twitter at the time that, yes, it probably doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things. But, you know, if he is serious, and if we do see that again on tour, it's fascinating.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've spoken in the past that the further up the leagues we think we'll go, that maybe we need to evolve and adapt our formation. I know as well that Parky and a lot of managers will say this, that as supporters and living in this football video game generation, we put way too much emphasis on formation. There's 10 outfield players. They will play in a myriad of different positions as the game goes on. They will adapt. They will adjust to what's in front of them, really. So maybe, you know, from our FIFA, our sort of EAFC, you know, our football manager backgrounds, we keep on thinking, we're playing 3-5-2, we've got a cam. No one used to, growing up, no one called it a cam or a CDM. You just played midfield, you know, you're defensive or you're attacking. Maybe now that, you know, the language we speak about football is a lot more detailed than it used to be. But it is interesting because fundamentally the way that you line up at the back, it does have a bearing on your team, particularly if it goes from a 3 to a 4. It's something that we've called for in the past. Looking at our options heading into the new season, you'd still say that we've got wing backs rather than full backs. So would the 4 at the back really work in a league situation? I'm not too sure. We're also inundated with a lot of talented centre halves. So can you only play 2 of them? I think it's just going to depend how the season goes, really, Nath. I still think that we're at our best with that sort of 3 at the back and the 2 wide men. It's just the way that we've been playing for so long. Obviously, we'll have to adapt it and adjust going forward. It's good to have that, you know, different approach as a viable option in pre-season. But I do think next season we'll still see us playing that similar sort of formation and setup, personally.
Rich, it is interesting, though, that if you did play... Just humour me here, and you have to humour me quite a lot on this podcast, but humour me in this specific moment. If you did play that 4-4-2 in terms of the diamond midfield, and you had an Evans or a Dobson, take your pick, at the base of that midfield, either of those could drop in to become a third centre-half if you were out of possession, right? And so maybe it is that sort of fluidity in some games, maybe. I don't know.
Well, it goes back to the sort of box midfield again, doesn't it? I mean, Man City would... If you watch Man City, they theoretically play with 4 at the back, but John Stones moves into midfield whenever, you know, they're in possession of the ball. So then they go to a 3 at the back. Again, that is kind of the point we're making, that as football fans, we think, oh, he's playing 3-5-2. So for the entire 90 minutes, they're going to be 3-5-2. No one's going to stray from position. They will all stay exactly where they're supposed to be. That's just not how football works. You might start with 3 centre-halves on the pitch, but we've seen so many times watching Wrexham that if we need a goal or we need to push up, one of them will move into midfield. A centre mid might move out wide to give you another option. It's so fluid the way that football is played that, you know, for me, it's the fascinating thing is just the 4 at the back that can go to the 3 at the back. It's going to be interesting to see how that fits in terms of personnel. But yeah, it's interesting, especially early days of pre-season. Like you said, maybe it is just down to personnel. You mentioned there the reasons why, you know, it's because Brunton Boyle weren't available. Dobson's first outing in a Wrexham shirt. Then I mean, we're not going to read too much into it because, as we've said in the past, there are a plethora of players who have looked like world beaters for Wrexham in pre-season. It's not turned out to be successful when the season starts. But your early impressions of Dobson, what do you make of him?
I think he's going to win the Ballon d'Or based on what I saw at Hanley Town. No, in all seriousness, he was very vocal. I think you could see that leadership that Parky was talking about. Also, I'm going to shout out to anyone who's watching on the video. Rich is very happy because he's got his Wrexham Gatorade water bottle. Thank you very much to the people
Not
of
sponsored.
Gatorade. Not sponsored, but they're very kindly, as they have for others, given us these Wrexham bottles. I'm knocking my microphone, so excited. But Dobson, you could see his leadership. You could see that he was very vocal, especially to some of the youngsters who, he could have only trained with a handful of times, I would have felt like. And he was very keen to, especially in the press, he was very adamant that, you needed to press much harder than maybe they were in the early stages of the game. And it was an interesting one because Hanley faded as the match went on and the score got ran up. But yeah, Dobson, neat and tidy, moves it around. I would say he was obviously tasked with that, but he did seem a lot closer to George Evans than maybe an Andy Cannon, James Jones, and so I came away from
the Luke Young replacement we thought he was. In that sense, that he's more like another George Evans.
Yeah, more so. I mean, I'm only basing it off 45 minutes. It's very, very difficult to say with much certainty, and people have said he loves a tackle and all that, but I came away from the game very impressed with James Jones, actually. That was what I was saying to people around me, that this idea that he might be the weakest link's the wrong phrase, but might be the bottom of the pecking order in terms of the midfield options, because you've gone and signed Dobson, you've got Evans, you've got Cannon, you've got Lee, or say he's only above Davis or whatever. We don't know how it's going to shake out. I think James Jones proved that he's got great fitness, great energy. He linked up really well with Barnett down the right side in that first half, and I think he could surprise a few people. I think he's got a lot to offer, even though there's all these other players that are jockeying for position.
I'd say that most great midfields in world football, they're not made of the three best technical players at a club. I think there's so much value in having someone like a Luke Young or a James Jones there, who is your Duracell bunny. He's your box-to-box man. He harasses opponents. He closes them down. He runs non-stop for 90 minutes. He's the link man. He can do a little bit of everything. Maybe he doesn't have the same specialist skill set in the attack as Elliot Lee. Maybe not as good defensively as George Evans or Tom O'Connor. But he just has that really important link role. And, you've got your specialist there, like we said, attack-minded. You've got your defence-minded specialist as well in midfield. You need that link man. And most of the time it will be Andy Cannon. We've seen how good he was last season. But I agree with you. I'm a huge fan of James Jones. There's a reason he's played so many times for Phil Parkinson, because he's trusted. He knows exactly what he needs to do. He just brings that almost unique skill set now to the team as well, because Luke Young isn't his competitor. He is sort of the only guy in that mould right now, James Jones. So hopefully we get to see a lot more of him in the season ahead. I think he'll play. I think he's one of those guys who will be in every matchday squad for the whole season. He might not have that many minutes, but he'll be in every matchday squad. So and he's just going to be a really useful player.
So you don't think he'd be the type that will be the odd man out? Because there'll be in each position there'll be an odd man out that gets left out of the squad entirely. You don't see that being James Jones.
I just think we play so many games that I don't think there's going to really be that common theme this season in that regard. I think that it will be shared around a lot more, and it's Wrexham. There's got to be injuries along the way, aren't there?
I was going to say you've got to be injury dependent. But Rich, before we move on from Hanley, one of the talking points, and I know people have spoken at length about Jordan Davis, but I was just going to pick out Sam Dolby, who we've spoken about before in terms of he is well liked by Phil Parkinson, and other players talk about how he's got so much ability in training they can't get over it. Like, he's just really, really talented, and they sort of want to shake him almost to just get it out of him when it comes to the matches. He was impressive, admittedly against a tiring Hanley defence, but there is an opportunity there. If he is still at the club and he's not been loaned out by the Wickham game, he has got to believe he's got the ability, or he's got to think he has the chance to make an impact without Mullen there. With Marriott, he's in competition with Marriott, he's in competition with Palmer. I don't know. I came away from that. Maybe I am being a bit naive here because we've seen this Sam Dolby tale before, but he's really got to seize this preseason. I think with both hands.
He does, but it does just feel like a broken record now. Like you said, I do like a lot of what Sam Dolby has to offer. I think he maybe does lack that confidence and cutting edge when he actually does play in these competitive matches. But the reality is now he's comfortably fifth or sixth choice striker, and we still want another one. I mean, I wouldn't have him ahead of Palmer. I wouldn't have him ahead of Fletcher. Wouldn't have him ahead of Bullen. Wouldn't have him ahead of Marriott. Would I have him ahead of Bickerstaff, who's at the club? I don't know. I think the only person who's above comfortably right now for me is Billy Waters. And
I mean,
I know
if
we
you
keep
watched
on
that,
saying,
if you watched that Hanley game, you'd have been saying Sam
Yeah, but-
Dolby Ballon d'Or, mate.
but-
No, I'm joking.
I'm not going to get too carried away after this one game. I think for Dolby, it's just really interesting because he's got a lot more to offer. But I think he's in the same position now as Bickerstaff was last summer, and you were crying out all last summer that Bickerstaff needs to go on loan, and in the end he does. He did do that. I think that Dolby just needs a season where he's one of the main guys and he gets that confidence and he gets that scoring streak. I think he can be a Football League caliber striker. I just don't think that we can offer him the opportunities that he needs right now. The competition is so fierce at Wrexham, and we still want another striker. So I just don't think it's going to really work out for him. Even if we keep him around from a selfish point of view and play him in the League Cup, we play him in the Bristol Street Motors Trophy. Is that enough? Because if he plays well in those games, he's not going to force his way into the starting lineup. And even if he does play well in those games, they're so few and far between. From a selfish Wrexham point of view, yeah, maybe it makes sense to keep him. So we've got someone else who we can put in fresh for those cup games. But for his own progression now, is that what he needs? Is that conducive to him fulfilling his potential? I don't think it is. He's had 2 seasons now with Wrexham. Was it 2.5? Yeah, 2 full seasons. Has he got better in those 2 seasons? It's tough to say, isn't it?
Yeah,
So,
I just feel like I watched that, and again, let's see how the tour shakes out. But I just thought he looked in impeccable shape. Like he looked probably one of the fittest there over the two sets of squads. He looked the trimmest. It looked like he'd really worked hard,
hasn't he? Because if he knows he's down the pecking order, he has to have something over his rivals. And if it is fitness and his work rate in pre-season, fair enough. But the point of the matter is,
yeah.
Go on, you go on.
I've got huge doubts over Marriott that only we can't read too much into Hanley, and yet here we are 17 minutes into the podcast talking about Hanley still. But I just came away from that and I thought on the day, if you were just watching that one-off performance and what's the pecking order here, I think you would have had Dolby ahead of Palmer and Marriott comfortably on the day. That's one day. We'll see how it goes against Bournemouth in Santa Barbara. We'll see how it goes against Chelsea. We'll see how it goes against Vancouver Whitecaps when we're there. But I think if you come away from the tour where Sam Dolby has comfortably outperformed all the other strikers, and you come back, maybe he is going to get farmed out on loan straight away. But I'd be curious to see if that's the case. If we watch all these preseason games, Rich, and you end up seeing what I saw the other day, or we both see it in every game where, wow, that was a good performance by Sam Dolby. He's comfortably outperformed all the other strikers. We're not sure about the fitness of Fletcher, or we're not sure about the fitness of so-and-so. Sam Dolby's fit and looking good. You're probably right, which I'm loath to say, but you're probably right that maybe it is the end of the road, but I tell you what, he is giving it a go, or at least he looks like he is, right until that loan or that exit is sanctioned, because right now he's still at Wrexham, right now he's on the tour in Beverly Hills. Lots of people in training are sort of desperately rooting for him for the penny to drop, really, for it to click. And until he's out the door, Rich, he's got to do everything he can to get that click.
Well, Nath, if anyone's watching on YouTube this week, they'll see that I am in the anniversary kit. Wrexham's last anniversary kit, so 10 years old now. The 150th anniversary memories of Grimsby, and was it Jamal John Lewis? Was it who scored?
Linnell John
Lewis. You're wearing the red one that we finally achieved promotion in. New kit this week, and I think it has divided opinion. Some people saying it looks like a Welsh rugby union sort of stinker that just just has that Six Nations bootcut jean sort of odor to it. It's got the heritage though. This is the throwback to the famous 70s kit, was it the 77 shirt. What do you make of it? I mean, you had the misfortune of trying to buy it, League One team with a non-league website. I mean, have you got the shirt yet? You paid for it twice.
Yes, I have. Well, I look like I paid for it twice. Only one seemingly actually worked. So one shirt is on its way to my dad, which is a very late father. He's a bit like me. He never sort of wants for anything, never can come up with ideas. So we just got to the point where for Father's Day, I said I'd get him a shirt. And I didn't realise just how difficult that process would be. But nonetheless, unlike some of the other people that were tweeting us that they'd bought 16 shirts, I only ended up buying it twice, one of which didn't even work. So one shirt. But yeah, I don't hate it and I don't like it, which isn't a very good opinion, is it, for a podcast? A bit vanilla, but I found it okay. But, it's nothing, not a special shirt for me, and I will probably for myself be waiting for that third gold kit to see how that looks.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is just sort of a 6 out of 10. It looks like the type of thing that Rotherham would wear. It's just basically last season's shirt with a different collar, which I just think with a collar is so much more potential. Maybe to make it a bit more unique. It's still a little bland. Not sure I want to wear the sort of ribbed dragon scale shirt myself, but
I don't mind that.
I'm sure lots of people like that. And
on this one, it's kind of like dragons on there, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I'd say is what I used to not like about maybe the early Macron kits, and certainly even maybe some of the kits that are considered good in our history, is that we didn't always maybe. I think it divides opinion, but do you want to sort of milk the fact you're Welsh, you're called the Dragons? Do you know what I mean? I'd love it to have like the Dragor on the back of the collar still. I'd love it. I like that there's the Gresford, obviously, tribute there this year. But I'd like, I'm thinking of that. Was it the 03-04 shirt that had the Welsh Dragon on the back when we won the LDV Vans, wasn't it? So what, 05? But I just think that, I'm not against us sort of using the Red Dragons sort of reputation in the kit myself. I just don't really like the scales personally. But maybe I kind of remember that Inter Milan shirt? Was it like the 2010 one that had the blue dragon going down the side of it? And there's that Real Madrid black one that had like the Chinese dragon on it with the collar. Is that a bit too gimmicky? I'm sure fans would absolutely hate it if
right.
released that. Some fans would love it. They're always going to divide opinion. There's not been a kit released in history that everyone agrees on. So
exactly.
That's just natural. I think, credit that they've tried to make it a little different and not just the most generic template imaginable by putting the dragon in it. But for me, I don't think I'll be purchasing it this year. But, let us know what you think of that.
Yeah, I don't mind the scales. It's one of them where I think until I see it in person, I don't know how sort of obvious it is,
The other thing is, I thought it was I hated the kit, and then I saw George Evans in it, and I did think, wow, that looks good. And then I realised I wasn't actually looking at the shirt. So, it's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, beautiful footballers wearing a shirt, they can make it look good. On myself, I just think that collar will be very loose and baggy. I'm going to look a bit scrawny. It's not really going to suit me. But
I was going to say, Rich, do you typically like those collared shirts? I feel like you'd pull off that collar up kind of, football on the playground kind of vibe, or is that not really your...
the arrogance. Yeah, that's what you're trying to say.
Like,
thanks.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like you could just put the collar up.
I think my favourite Wrexham shirt is the 94 one, really, with the collar, the Wrexham Lager one, ENS. I love that shirt. I love it. I do love a collar on a football shirt. I like this. I mean, the 70s designers, they're a bit looser. I like one that's got a zipper or a button, this you can make it a bit...
Right.
You can have it up or down. Well, that one's it is open and you've got no way to change it. So, yeah, it's one that will divide opinion, I'm sure. Lots of you already got in touch with us on RobRyanRed on the socials. Let us know, RobRyanRed@gmail.com, or go to RobRyanRed.com and the contact us button there. Let us know. Do you like the new home shirt? Are you going to buy it, or are you going to wait for, like you said, the black away kit or the gold third strip? They should be released in the coming days. And a word of note, that Wrexham home shirt will be debuted for the first time on Friday. Wrexham women begin their Rex Coast tour against SoCal FC. Then Wrexham men play on Saturday against Bournemouth. Wrexham women back in action against Tigres Femenil under-19s on Sunday. Then we've got the Chelsea game next Wednesday.
Chelsea,
We'll review that, and then the two games after that will be Wrexham women against Portland Thorns Academy on the Friday, and of course Wrexham against Vancouver Whitecaps on the Saturday.
Rich, the gold kit, what I'll say last on this, the gold kit could be sublime, 10 out of 10, or it just could be something that I just cannot possibly wear outside. And it just... I've got
visions of this already, mate. Sheffield United away, they'll be in red and white. So we'll either be in the black or we'll be in the gold. Can you imagine going to Bramall Lane and losing 6-0 or something in this gold kit? Like the sort of arrogance of wearing all gold.
I've still got, it's probably not even going to happen. I've still got this idea in my head that we could have like a totally black kit, like a blacked out badge, like blacked out sponsor, kind of like that Borussia Dortmund kit from
yeah,
a few
they were
years
all
ago,
the rage, and it feels like a lot of teams release them, and I think they've
we missed the boat.
I think it's one of those things that, like, if you release one now, it's like, hello, welcome to 2014. Well done, you're cool. Like, it's just a bit...
2014? Are we that long ago? I was thinking like
maybe
a couple of years
2014.
Ago. Right.
It's probably like 2016 or 17. But do you know what I mean? Still, I feel like we've missed the trend on that one.
Also, if you brought out the kit I'm wearing now, I saw a lot of people say that this is their least favourite home shirt from the takeover era, with the first TikTok installment their favourite. I bet if they released the kit you're wearing now, that would... I mean, I love that kit that you're wearing now, but I think that would cause huge consternation that it was kind of hooped with the black and red.
Well, there's two things here, aren't there? That obviously revisionism helps with how you judge a kit. And the fact of the matter is, if you go and achieve greatness in a shirt, it becomes a classic. Some shirts are there's a few football shirts that are just beautiful items and you love them whatever happens. But most of them are the symbolism, it's the memories of it. When I look at this shirt, what games do I think of? I think, there's not many that stand out. It's like North Ferriby, it's the Grimsby game. It's, it's quite a sad shirt to wear at times because it was from a really bad season, but it's a nice shirt and it means a lot because of the 150th anniversary. Your shirt, again, is added to because it's where we finally got out of the National League, 15 years of hurt. That is that's the shirt. So that's the quirk of it. If Wrexham go and win League One this season, the shirt we wear is going to be iconic. Last season's shirt, I hated, but we got promoted from League Two in it, so it's going to be a classic for those reasons, and there's such good memories attached to it. So that's the other sort of hypocritical part of all this. But again, like we said, let us know what you think of the shirt, and we will keep you posted ahead of the release of the other two in the coming weeks.
Rich, then, two new faces. Everyone was getting ready for the tour. I know they were travelling down on the Monday and they thought this will be fine. This will all be okay. Everyone's got their passports. Everyone's got their tickets. Hang about, last minute admin, fire up the HP printer. We're getting a new signing in. And then I got word, no, we're not getting one new signing. We're getting two new signings and they're both going to the US. So the lowdown of it before we unpack it, Luke McNicholas has gone out on loan to Rochdale, so he's going to get minutes to be a first-choice goalkeeper. We wish him all the best. In comes free agent goalkeeper Callum Burton. I'm forgetting his name now. Callum Burton. And then in comes young fullback Seb Revan, or Seb Revan, as Rich said earlier, from Aston Villa on an undisclosed fee. We're on a 3-year deal with the option of a fourth, which might be the longest contract offered out since the takeover, Rich. I can't really recall a potential 4-year contract, but that, I'm happy to be proven wrong on that. So Revan and Burton in the building. What were your initial thoughts?
Burton, surprised we went for another goalkeeper. I mean, for me, my own argument would be, why get rid of McNicholas to get Burton when you've already got McNicholas, who's apparently a highly rated goalkeeper, but at his age in his career, he does need to be playing again. Similar to what we said about Dolby, that it's not fair to keep him on the bench again, where he's got to clearly be second or even third choice for the season ahead, and you've already got Mark Howard, who's trusted. It signifies that Mark Howard is mainly just in the sort of a coaching role now. The fact that Burton's been brought in because basically Howard's not going to be trusted as much to be the backup, which is understandable. Lots of managers love having 3 or 4 goalkeepers they can really trust for training, just to have in the building, really, to have that department all sewn up. So I think Burton's an interesting one. Don't expect him to play much, maybe in the cup games, but it's very much a conquo all the way for next season. And yeah, Sebastian Revan potentially could be one of the most exciting signs we've made so far, I think, just because of his pedigree, the fact that he'd played 35 games in the Championship last season. He counts as an underage player for us, so he doesn't have to be registered in the squad initially. So that's a real good pickup from sort of an administrative point of view as well. I'm really excited by him. We've been saying for weeks, haven't we? We need another left wing back because ultimately, as that website clipped up my voice last time and turned it into a news story, I just have doubts about Jacob Mendy being able to start at League One level. I think he'd be decent as backup.
That's getting clipped up again. Let's just get the rich Fay aggregators back.
And James McLean, I think, is very good as a left wing back going forward. I still have concerns about him defensively there. I'd like to see him play central midfield more going forward, as we saw for a period last season. So I think it's great. Revan maybe comes in, doesn't play every game initially, but the long-term goal will be that he's starting every week. By the end of the season, maybe by next season, can learn off James McLean a bit, early days. But I think it's a really good pickup. I think it gives us a bit more balance in the team, and the fact that he is an underage player is such a sensible buy for us because it doesn't mean that we've got the headache of who misses out for him.
Yeah, I mean, again, you've now got Arthur Okonkwo, Seb Revan, Max Cleworth, all players that Lewis Brunt, all players that could have huge potential resale value, and you have to back yourself in believing that your talent ID is strong
O'Connor
enough.
as well, you could put in that.
O'Connor, yeah, you put O'Connor in there, but you've got to back yourself that you've got a talent ID where, yes, you don't want to become a selling club, but if you ever needed to, if Wrexham didn't hit the levels that they needed, they're future-proofed by having players that are going to be worth an immense amount of money. So I think Revan is really interesting, and I also think it is an interesting point. When he signed and I saw the pedigree, I thought, Rotherham's young player of the season, he's going to come in and be an immediate starter. I actually think if that's not the case, great if it is, and he's brilliant, and we're going to speak to a Villa fan very, very shortly about his strengths and weaknesses. If he does come in and play straight away, that's great. If he doesn't, I think there's an immense education to be had behind James McLean, who was wearing the armband at Hanley Town. And again, whoever I think gets the armband, typically they're going to play a lot of matches. You don't typically have a captain that watches from the sidelines all the time. So if it is McLean, I would expect him to play, whether, as you say, Rich, it's in central midfield or not. But if it is at left wing back and Revan is kind of in and out and learning from McLean, and again, McLean's very unlikely to, or very rarely is he injured because he's so fit. But there's an education of almost just learning the dark arts, learning the shithousery of men's football, that there's no greater teacher in the dojo, I think, than James McLean. So very, very excited. But you and I, we don't know much about Seb Revan, Rich. We didn't watch a lot of Rotherham. We didn't watch a lot of Aston Villa Academy. Shock in our time in the day job.
Call yourself a journalist.
I know, unbelievable, isn't it? So what I did is I spoke to Academy AVFC. It's a Twitter account. They do brilliant work covering Villa's Academy, where Revan was there for, 14, 15 years. And here is what they had to tell me about Revan's strengths and weaknesses. Right then, before the lads flew out to the United States, a quick call was made to get two more faces in the building, one of which was rising star young fullback Seb Revan. Now, as I always say on the podcast, my pet peeve is people who pretend to know everything about players that they've probably never watched before. And I definitely haven't seen Seb Revan, but I know that Charlie from the Villa Academy at Academy AVFC, there we go, on X, on Twitter, will have seen a lot of him over the years. Revan come through Villa's Youth Academy, won the FA Youth Cup with Villa. Charlie, are we getting a superstar here, a potential star?
I think someone whose value will appreciate in time, and I think it's a clever signing because he's. I talk a lot on podcasts about this sort of decision age in someone's career where they've got to decide, when am I going to go and become a professional football player? It's clear he was not really going to get an opportunity at Villa, so this was the perfect time for him to go somewhere. And I think the aspirations he will have in his career kind of match those of Wrexham, where it's a club that wants to grow beyond where they currently are, and I'm sure Revan doesn't want to be a League One player for much longer in his career. So yeah, it makes sense for all parties. I think he's definitely someone who has received plaudits silently within the club. So he's always been one that's always called up for first team training. He's captained the youth sides, And so from that aspect, he's definitely someone who will be a valuable addition to the squad. But then if we talk about his on-field ability, it's also something where I'm quite looking forward to seeing what he can do in League One, to be honest. He's proficient, generally more so in the final third. He's played as like an auxiliary winger at times, supporting the sort of out-and-out winger or a more defensive fullback. And while he was at Rotherham last season, occasionally on the opposite flank, on the right wing, where he can cut in and deliver some of those balls that can really get the goalkeeper flustered. And so I think that's actually where he made more of his impact last season with Rotherham. He was utilised as a right winger, where he can add that sort of level of defensive maturity that he's accrued through his time as a fullback, but actually give him opportunity to be a bit more threatening with those cutting and shots or crosses. He won Rotherham's Young Player of the Season last season in the Championship. So definitely valuable in that sense. And yeah, as I say, I'm pretty excited by it as someone who tends to be more leaning towards the players' interests rather than the club's interests. I think this is going to be a really fun one to watch. I think it's going to be a good move.
So, all of that sounds super positive, and I think, it's not worth anybody getting too bogged down in the fact he didn't make the grade at Villa. Villa going into the Champions League, very, very tough, and got, big aspirations, big budget to get players in. Villa did give him a new contract. They have got a fee. That'll be a positive, even though we don't know the fee. The question for us is that we're expecting Phil Parkinson to stick with his 3-5-2 that's got us these back-to-back promotions. James McLean and Jacob Mendy have kind of been the options on the left-hand side. And then we've got 3 right wing-back options in Ryan Barnett, Anthony Ford and Luke Bolton. So we're stacked with wing-backs, really, and Revan will come in. Everything you sort of said there, do you think he's more suited to one side, or could he come in as a starter on either side?
I think definitely he'd be a someone who's able to switch flanks, but no, I think that would be a last resort type situation. Definitely, if it were my decision, solely on, if we're talking about in the wing back position, only on the left.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say the club did put him down as a left back, which there's some people were debating about him being on the right.
Yeah, he's a left full back primarily. Who, and I think this is largely down to just how Rotherham approach things when they get promoted to the Championship. It tends to be sometimes quite negative and more pragmatic, and so they were playing almost 3 fullbacks at times with Revan used on the wing. But yeah, no, definitely. And thinking about it in the sense of a 3-5-2, definitely that left wing back position is where he'd be best utilised. Definitely.
Charlie, what would you say is his drawback? I mean, he's very young, so he's plenty of room to grow. We're saying he can become an appreciative asset, but he has dropped down to League One, has played in the Championship. Where are the areas of improvement in his game, do you think?
So I think from the occasions that I've watched him at Championship level, there's a bit of an immaturity to the defensive side of his game, and whether that's making a quick decision to slide in when you can potentially jockey the situation and control the situation a bit more as a defender. And so I think it's really refining that sort of decision-making aspect of the defensive side of his game. And so whether that, and granted, from what I understand about Phil Parkinson, that's something that he will be able to develop and improve. So yeah, I think that's the main area I'd be looking at, and that's why I think this wing back position benefits him a little bit more, because there is, granted, still some, but less of the nitty gritty of a traditional fullback role.
And what's his biggest? We'll end on this then. What's his biggest attribute? What's his best attribute that Wrexham fans can get excited about?
So I think generally just his final third play. He will surprise people with his, if this happens very much, set piece delivery. He scored a couple of really nice free kicks for the Villa Academy sides. And then, I think more and more within the EFL, I see when teams sign from academy players, they generally sign well-rounded footballers. And I'd say he's ready for the EFL just simply because of how well-rounded he is. I wouldn't necessarily say there's an outstanding feature of his attacking play, but I think it's one of those things where you don't necessarily have to be outstanding in one part of your game in order to get yourself a good career, in order to be functional within the team. And definitely, I think Seb. I think the one area I would say, if anything, the best attribute of his is, I think, a surprising level of leadership, and that comes from the periods as captain of the youth team. He's always been a leader figure within those teams. When we won the FA Youth Cup, he was part of the captaincy fold there. That changed a couple of times throughout the tournament. And then, just prepared to take situations on his shoulders. An attitude that he's not scared to go into difficult situations, and he's someone who, as I say, will have bigger aspirations than to play in League One for a long time. And so, and I think that's really exciting for Wrexham to get hold of.
So there you go, Rich. They were saying, or as Charlie was saying there, that one of his biggest strengths is set pieces. Now, he didn't actually specifically mention corners, but we did say that corners and set pieces were a big thing that we were looking at, so that's a huge boost. And it was also noteworthy that he said that the most impressive part of his game is in the final third. It is his attacking output, which I know maybe is similar to what you said about McLean. I know you mentioned there about immaturity defensively, but someone strong in the attacking third, if you've got Barnett on the other side, and remember Revan can play both sides, you've got some real weapons that can hurt teams going the other way and not necessarily worrying about what's coming our way.
You'd also say, look, if we're dominating games and attacking more than we're defending, it's not too much of a problem. It was just last season, it was such a common theme that teams appeared to be targeting us down the left wing. We seem to concede so many goals where a team would get in on the left, cut it back across goal and strike from there. It's going to be one of those signings where you can't expect too much straight away. I think he'll be exciting. He'll get fans off their seats. He's going to be, a fun addition to the squad, but, he's not the finished article yet. And I guess that is the little quirk there, is that you've got one left wing back in Revan, who's at the very start of his career, one in McLean, who's coming to the very end of his career. You've got Mendy, who is technically probably in his prime, but maybe not quite of the level required for League One. So you've not really got anyone who's got the monopoly on a position yet. So it's a real open position going into the new season. It's going to be interesting to see how it works out. And hopefully we get a glimpse of him when we're over in North America ourselves, which Nath brings us on to Bournemouth this weekend. Going to be really interesting. Type of game where, I don't want to be getting too pessimistic, but you wouldn't be surprised if we lost against Bournemouth and Chelsea and then maybe beat the Whitecaps.
No, I mean, it's very, very difficult to say, isn't it? It's Chelsea's first run out. Yes, they'll be, hamstrung a little bit and they're in their own scandal right now. Who knows? They desperately need a game just to get over all the scandals engulfing them and Enzo Fernandez. We don't need to get into that here. Bournemouth, I think, will be really interesting. That they'll have the likes of Dom Solanke, Antoine Semenyo, players that are Premier League battle tested. I think it'll be a good test for us to see how we get on out of possession. I'll be really interested to see if we do again 245s. I would imagine that's the case, and we build up to maybe 60s against Chelsea and then 65-70 against Whitecaps, and then against Fleetwood you'd expect to see the starting team that is going to play against Wickham. That's what I would hope. Against Bournemouth, I'm expecting it to be a decent game, which I don't think it'll be the trouncing that it would be in full flow. And also in full flow, Rich, if we played Bournemouth in the FA Cup, how would you feel then? Would you think we were just going to get, absolutely shellacked? I wouldn't. I mean, maybe we would, but I don't think I would.
I'd back us against a top team more in a competitive match than a preseason friendly, basically.
Right.
is kind of my thinking on this, just because we're going to be going through the motions ourselves. We're not going to be at the standards required. They've just got a better caliber of players. It's no shame in that whatsoever. A Premier League team has a better squad. Shock. That's not an issue. I'm not complaining or saying, Parky out, why aren't we winning preseason friendlies? I'm just saying that more so, don't get alarmed if, it's a repeat of last year when we got thrashed by Chelsea, or if it's one of these games. It's just such good experience for the players, really good for us to work on our fitness. Good as well, maybe for Parky. If he came up against a Bournemouth academy striker or something, or a winger who catches his eye, and you might say, hey, look, maybe we do have room to bring someone like that in. I just think it's going to be a great experience for everyone. Another real good step. Great to see Wrexham in North America again. I mean, I like Bournemouth tweeting it as born in the USA. I mean, that's great punnery at its best, but it's got to be an interesting match to see. And again, Nath, we don't watch too much of Bournemouth, despite, being Premier League journalists. So you've got the lowdown on what to expect from the Cherries as well.
Yeah, I know you did go down to watch the Cherries. I'm not sure how that was for you. When it was Forest Green, you were all the way down there, and I know you were very, very upset at the time. But the guys over at the Back of the Net show, which is, I think, AFC Bournemouth's #1 fan channel, they kindly gave up some time to chat to us about what we can expect to see from Bournemouth out there in what is expected to be a very, very hot Santa Barbara. But also, I asked them, Rich, about stadium. Can you get to the very, very top with the stadium that they've got right now, which is smaller than Wrexham, I think under 12,000? And also, what does it take to get from League 2 all the way up to the Premier League? So this was my chat with the guys at Back of the Net. Now, myself and Rich are getting very, very excited for Vancouver. But before then, I texted Rich earlier, this has crept up on us. We're playing AFC Bournemouth in Santa Barbara. Now, we spoke to Peter Moore when he was looking out into the ocean over there in Santa Barbara, saying how amazing it is. The guys that are going there, Back of the Net, #1 AFC Bournemouth fan channel, Sam is joining us now to talk about Bournemouth. Sam, how excited are you about going to Santa Barbara, firstly?
Thanks for having me on, Nathan. Really excited. We've had a couple of US tours as a football club before, about 10 years or so ago, against the likes of Minnesota and Philadelphia. But this is a new level for us, because we're not only playing the global commercial powerhouse that is Wrexham, we've also got Arsenal as well, some small North London club to face. But look, we're really excited about it. We've got 2 games to watch, an open air training session, and I think it presents a really good opportunity for the team to get fit, but a commercial opportunity as well for us. So yeah, happy days. It should be a good one, and we're really excited about the trip.
Yeah, it's a stadium that gets a lot of love for the atmosphere that it can create, Harder Stadium, and I know it's a sellout, and I know people are frantically looking for tickets, and I would say any Wrexham fans looking, and we see anyone selling, we will be posting on social media, so do keep your eye out, don't give up hope just yet, but it is fast approaching, so if you do want to sell, you do want to buy, let us know. But there'll be lots of Bournemouth interest as well there, because Bill Foley, it's not just us with American Canadian ownership. I guess quickly talk to us a bit about what that experience has been like for you, having American ownership, because for us it's obviously been very well documented in documentary form, but for yourselves, how's the experience been for you?
It's been really interesting, actually. It's been very different to what we've been used to, because over the past 12, 13 seasons or so, our owner has been a Russian guy called Maxim Demin, and he is a person that has financially put money into the club but been very quiet, and he never really spoke to the press, and it was all very hush-hush, but he was a big supporter of the club, and he's done things that we'll never forget, and put money into the transfer kitty, helped improve the stadium, lots of different things like that. But then we learn of his intentions to sell once we get promoted to the Premier League. And I think, that's a good time for potential owners to turn up and then purchase a club. And Bill Foley was that man. And he's a person that's very transparent, much like your own team as well, of Rob and Ryan and co. He's very open with the supporters. He's been very direct about what he thinks we can achieve. At the time, Scott Parker, after 4 games, got sacked. We lost to Liverpool 9-0. Gary O'Neill took charge for AFC Bournemouth, and results weren't going unbelievably well. We were flirting with relegation, and Bill Foley just comes out in an interview on AFCB TV and says, we won't get relegated. Now, we were thinking, is this guy naive or what? Because he's dealing with, English football fans, British football fans that know exactly how things can get memed up and how we can get the mickey taken out of us every time we go onto X or Instagram, social media, whatever. Thankfully, it happened. He also promised things like European football within 5 or 6 seasons, which, if it's anything like what he said about the Golden Knights, his ice hockey team in Vegas, that worked out and they won the cup that he promised they would win within the time frame that he said it. He also talked about a new stadium, a new training ground for AFC Bournemouth. That is slowly being delivered. So as far as things off the pitch go, it's been brilliant, but also on the pitch as well, it's been fantastic. So we've really enjoyed the ride.
Before we get on to players to watch, obviously you guys are much more familiar being in the Premier League than we are, but people will maybe not be familiar with some of your players. One of the questions we always get asked about is what is Wrexham's path to the Premier League? And certain things about, can Wrexham get to the Premier League with the racecourse, with the stadium as it is? Does it need to grow? These have been huge issues around the club for us and our podcast. We don't have a training ground, all these other things. Bournemouth did go, for anyone who doesn't know, they did go from League Two to the Premier League. Not back to back to back to back, but it was a slow, progressive journey. You've got one of the smallest stadiums in the Premier League, if not the smallest one, which is about, 12, 13,000 or slightly above that, 15,000-ish. 11,000.
79.
There you go. So smaller than Wrexham, what we've got right now. So it can be possible. I just think it might be worth you speaking about how you found the rise up, because Wrexham are in League One now. We're 2 steps away, but how big were those steps for you, and how big do you think they might be for us?
Yeah, there's a lot of derision when it comes to Premier League fans, especially the big six, when you're visiting them and they've got a minimum 50,000 capacity and they're singing our garden shed is bigger than this and all that stuff. We've heard it all before, but I think in a weird way we sort of have used that to our advantage, really. We could have expanded one of the stands and made it larger, but I think ultimately with the owners that we've got in place, I think they want bigger and better things. And where we are at the moment, the footprint of land that we're on, we can't expand that much. And ultimately we need to move only across the park, so it wouldn't be a huge move. But whilst we've got it small, why not try to keep that, really good atmosphere within the stadium and, keep it small and compact. But in terms of getting there, I think it was a really great rise, because obviously we had Eddie Howe that sort of masterminded that for us. And when we got promoted from League One to the Championship, it wasn't one where we finished first. We finished second. We thought we could finish first, but we finished second. Happy days. We got into the Championship, and that was our season of transition, really. But that's also when the new owner at the time, the Russian guy that I was just alluding to earlier on, he came on board, spent some good money, not huge amounts, but enough for us to be able to sign some decent players that were more than equipped at that level. And then it was a season where we finished 10th in the first season, and then the next season we were just expecting, if we have a playoff push, great. We did more than that, and we actually won the league, which was absolutely phenomenal. But it probably happened quicker than the owners expected, quicker than Eddie Howe expected, a lot quicker than the fans expected. But getting there was absolutely superb. But I have to say one thing: the journey's better than the destination.
I was about to say that's what Rich always tells me, that he's always slightly wary of actually making it to the Premier League, but loves the ride to get there. I think League Two for us was amazing, and now we're going to League One while playing your Birminghams, Readings, Boltons, teams that have been right at the very, very top. Let's focus on this Santa Barbara game then. So I went on your podcast, and people, even if you're listening here, do go listen to that, because you'll get a lot more insight into Bournemouth. But we're just gonna have a quick little chat about some of the names that people might know about Dom Solanke, the striker, but who can we keep an eye out? Who's going to be on this tour that might light Wrexham on fire, that might rip Wrexham to pieces? You've got some very, very good players, we know.
Yeah, Dom Solanke's the obvious name. I think there are 1 or 2 names that might not be available. Like Luis Sinisterra is absolute quality for us, but he was involved in the Copa America final, so chances are that he's not going to be playing, or if he is, he's probably going to play a bit part role. Antoine Semenyo, on the right hand side for us. We signed him from Bristol City, and he's a great player. We sort of wondered how's he going to adapt to life in the Premier League, but he's superb. He's fast, he's strong, he's pacey. He can hit it with his right or his left. So for a left-sided, defender, you're sort of wondering like which way is he going to go here. He's chipped in with goals as well. Great player. Lewis Cook, we absolutely love, and we thought that he was unlucky not to be even in considerations for the England squad in the Euros, because we just think he's absolutely solid alongside him. Alex Scott, brilliant player. Justin Cliver, Patrick's son, he's popped up with a few goals. Another excellent player as well. And in defence as well, Ilya Zabani, our centre back. That's, if you're a person who plays Football Manager, he's one of their highly rated young stars. We've got a good spine throughout the whole side, really. How many of them will be involved? I think most of them will be, but it'll probably be just a half of football, etc. But there are a number of names that Wrexham fans or fans in the stadium will be able to see that will be appearing on Match of the Day when the season begins. So there will be some big names on the pitch.
When we played Chelsea in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, we got royally turned over. We struggled to have a shot on target. I did feel I was there in Keenan Stadium, 55,000. It was frustrating because I know a lot of people had travelled a long way to see Mullin and to see all these players, and we barely got a kick. Obviously have the players that are worth tens of millions that could do that to us, but given it's the pre-season opener for us, given it's our sort of first game on tour for the men, and I'm assuming it's your first game as well. Are you expecting it to be maybe not as one-sided as I fear it could be?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be overly one-sided. I think it could be the archetypal game of two halves, really. I mean, I don't really know what we would get out of playing our strongest, Premier League 11, for the full 90, because we want to be tested as well. So I think there is going to be a blend of, youth and experience. And I'm sure, some of the younger lads that usually play for the development side will also get some minutes. We want to be competitive and we want to be tested. And that sounds a little bit patronising, really, because we know the strengths that, that Wrexham have got. And I don't think it's going to be a match that we're going to blow you away 5-0. I'd like to think that we could get a result, but no, I think it's going to be a really interesting contest. Let's be clear about it. It's going to be hot out there. I mean, the temperatures are 29, 30 degrees at the moment. Now we're playing Arsenal on the same tour, but it's going to be an evening kickoff at 7:00. The temperatures want to dip. This is at 4 p.m. So I think there's going to be a lot of rotation. It's going to be one of those annoying friendlies where there's going to be water breaks every 20 minutes and loads of substitutions. So it's going to be very stop-start. But, as a result, I don't think you can really have a match which is full of momentum.
Right.
So I do think it's going to be, closer than maybe the average Bournemouth fan who sees, okay, they're a Premier League side, they're a League One side, we should beat these easily. It's not going to be like that.
Before we'll wrap up with one question about your manager, but what I would say is any player who injures a Wrexham player, and an important one, as Man United's youngsters found, prepare for any social media pile-on. So that's just a word of warning to any of these young Bournemouth lads that if you dare go near Elliot Lee or George Evans or Ryan Barnett or any of these other lads, buckle up, because we are fierce behind our keyboards, Sam. I will be honest with that. Lastly then, because people are talking a lot about Phil Parkinson and the work he's done for us, but Iraola, I hope I'm saying that right, for Bournemouth has been, I've seen him in a work capacity. I watched Bournemouth destroy Man United at Old Trafford, and it wasn't a fluke by any stretch of the imagination. He's done brilliant work, and like you mentioned about Foley was ruthless in getting rid of Parker and then Gary O'Neill. That was a bit of a shock. But Iraola's been a breath of fresh air for you guys, hasn't he?
He really has. When he came in, like I said, not many people knew about him. We were all frantically looking online, sort of Googling what he's all about, what experience he's got. And, to the global or, the fans of other clubs, they just couldn't understand it. I mean, why little old Bournemouth getting rid of Gary O'Neill, the man that managed to save them? But I think that shows that they're looking to play a certain brand of football and they want to reach a certain level. And I think the ceiling under Iraola is higher than what it would have been under Gary O'Neill. The start for him was very difficult. The first 7 or 8 games, we picked up minimum points. And fans were thinking, "Oh my goodness, have we made the sort of right move here?" Because there weren't even any signs of seeing some good performances. But then there was this kind of sliding doors moment 8 or 9 games in against Burnley where things just started to click. And from there, it seems like that the players have got on board, and it's a real entertaining brand of football to watch. It's front foot, it's fast transitions, counter-attacking, a high press, like winning the ball back in the opposition's first third, and like at Manchester United, trying to turn over teams. We were used to, and we want to sort of pay some respect for Gary Neal for keeping us up, but we'd go 1-0 up and then the handbrake would be on, and it would be really frustrating. That was the same under Scott Parker. He's the closest thing to Eddie Howe that we've had, which is a compliment. He may have even surpassed him with some of the football that we've been playing, and we absolutely love Eddie Howe. So, yeah, the future's bright under Iraola. It's not without its weaknesses, but it's we're certainly in a really good place. And for his first season in charge, to finish where we did, breaking points records, I think has been absolutely phenomenal. So we're really excited, and he's been tied down with a slightly longer contract now as well. So things hopefully are bright and rosy at Dean Court.
Well, as this comes out every Thursday, Back of the Net boys, including Sam, are on the plane to the US, jetting over. Like I said, we are not there in Santa Barbara, unfortunately, as I don't think my skin would take it in that kind of heat. I'm not a very good tanner. Rich is probably. But where can they, Sam? Where can they follow it? Because we're going to be watching your vlog and all your content, because we're not there. So how can they follow it in Santa Barbara and beyond?
If on YouTube you just type in Back of the Net Bournemouth or AFCB podcast, that's our handle on social media as well. So on X, I still call it Twitter. If you look for AFCB podcast, you can find it on there, and we're going to be just pumping out as much content as we can, chatting to Bournemouth fans, but hopefully chatting to some Wrexham fans as well, and trying to absorb how they feel about your club. So yeah, really looking forward to it.
Really insightful, Rich. I think it was. I think they're expecting a pretty even contest for the most part. Maybe they run away with it at the end of Solanke with a couple of late goals, but they're expecting a measured game, really, which is going to be about build-up and patterns of play, and it's going to be a game that doesn't really get into much rhythm because of all the expected water breaks, and it'll just break the game up, break the flow of the game up. But if you're Owen O'Connell and you get to come up against Dom Solanke, or you're Revan and you get to come up against Semenyo, or Dobson gets to come up against Lewis Cook, these are really good battles. This is what you should be aiming for, top level opponents that can only make you better. And how do you improve? You play against better players, you train with better players. That is how you improve. And so yes, I just hope everyone can come through it. With this pre-season, Rich, I'm just hoping everybody comes through it completely unscathed. So scarred by the Mullen incident of San Diego against Man United's youngsters. Then obviously seeing Elliot Lee holding his right thigh at Hanley. You're just panicking, aren't you? You're just panicking that all these top players that we rely on are going to pick up an injury. So I'm very excited. We're going to have to find a way to watch it because we will still be in the UK. The Back of the Net guys are vlogging that trip, I believe. So we'll share that best we can and hopefully get a bit of an insight. But I know lots of people are going. I'll give a quick shout out, Rich, to Sherry, who I don't even have the number in front of me, but I think she said she was driving something like 7,000 miles to go to all the women's games and all the men's games. They're traveling from Denver, Colorado.
Think of those loyalty points. She's going to be first in line for every away day next season.
Honestly, we think we moan about going 2 hours to somewhere, and Sherry and her husband, I think it is going from Denver to where are they playing? 2 games in California, 2 games in LA, then 1 in Portland, and then the men have got San Francisco, Santa Barbara, and Vancouver. So a hell of a lot of miles in the car. So kudos to anyone who's doing similar to Sherry and those kind of miles. But yes, I'm very excited, Rich. It's kind of crept up on us a bit. I don't know. It feels like we've done these podcasts for the last few weeks and it's all been a bit of a blur. I was at Wimbledon with my fancy wooden background. That's now gone. And yeah, I'm just really excited. Vancouver will be there this time next week. We'll be recording in BC in Vancouver.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about that. Can't wait for that. Any other business, Nate? We've got the COP fan zone next season. Can't say I'll be venturing over there myself. I mean, at least it does include a match day ticket. What is it? They're charging like an extra £10 to go into the fan zone, essentially.
Yeah. So
good for
so
local
basically-
businesses, I'd say that is.
I would concur. So they're launching a Cop fan zone this season. So it'll be the space behind the temporary Cop, where there'll be live music, food and drink stands, and that is going to be an extra £10 on top of your matchday ticket. Now we know the Mighty Squid do great pre-match hospitality. They've got a huge area outside. The Turf do their own, and they may even have a fan zone this season. I know they've done that for multiple games, and I don't believe they would charge to get into that. But again, who knows what the plans are there. But temporary Cop, I'm also curious, Rich. The most thing with I love how that you just can't get enough of the Gatorade bottle here.
It's just delicious apple juice, mate.
I cannot stress how much Rich wanted to meet up with me this week purely on the purpose of getting the bottle. He did not want to see me. He just wanted the bottle. And so he has it now. Anyway, I'd be intrigued, Rich, to know how many of the temporary Cop tickets they'll sort of have to siphon off so that it has to include the fan zone. Do you know what I mean? Because if everyone buys the 3,000 tickets and nobody buys the fan zone, it's empty. So surely there'll be some that are ring-fenced off to...
I think the interest is so high that you could effectively put every ticket in the temporary Cop stand with the fan zone included in it.
Maybe.
Do you know what I mean? I think Wrexham, the demand is there at the moment, which is, it's good and bad in that sense that, essentially if Wrexham wanted to charge me a lot more for my season ticket, I probably would still have to pay it. Whether I agree with that morally or not, or whether they should do it, the point is there is so much demand for this football club now. So hopefully they don't do that. Hopefully they make footballing decisions, not business decisions all the time.
We'd have to get you doing some TikTok dances to pay for it, Rich. Get you doing some sort of like viral routines that you're not on board with.
Well, I was viral enough on Saturday not to go to Hanley, so hopefully I'm feeling better for Vancouver next week. And like I said, do drop us a message, RobRyanRed, on all the socials if you want to meet up. We were thinking of maybe making like a WhatsApp group or something as well, potentially at some point. People can meet up. We can have, we'll share our plans of where we're going to be, when we're going to be there, and hopefully we can meet as many of you as possible. Drinks are on you though. Would emphasise that if we can.
No, here, Rich, come on now. Let's be. Also, I want to quickly say we mentioned recently about the Chester game, the Chester clash. That's now been fixed. Chester's game has been, I think, flipped round. So Chester are now at home against Peterborough. So the D-Day in Peterborough is no more. Wrexham will travel to Peterborough as planned, and we mentioned about holding off, didn't we, on that because of potential changes, but that's now been cleared up. So I thought I would tie that up. But also Vancouver, if anyone is watching the Chelsea game, I believe it's on ESPN Plus. We are looking for somewhere to watch that. So if anyone has any recommendations of a sports bar or somewhere where we can watch that, let us know on any of the socials. We definitely are looking to watch that. We land on the Tuesday. We'll be floating around. We will be at the Pint, the Red Hordes event on the Saturday, pre-match. It seems like lots of people are going to be there, Rich. Very, very excited. And yeah, now we need to pack. Are you a last-minute packer? Sort of an early packer? I'm quite a late night before.
Night before, yeah.
And I'm just trying to get my shirts
ready.
Big
wash and everything, haven't I? So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which Wrexham kit's going to make the cut for Vancouver? That's the question. We shall see. Will all be revealed next week, maybe on the podcast. Like we said, we'll be doing that live from Vancouver after the Chelsea game. Who knows? You might even make an appearance yourself if you're listening now. So yeah, if you know somewhere to watch Wrexham versus Chelsea on ESPN Plus in Vancouver next Wednesday, then please do let us know. RobRyanRed@gmail.com. Thank you very much to all of you for listening, as always, especially to those of you who've been able to watch us on YouTube. It's a real good way for us to help grow the channel and grow the podcast ahead of the new season. As always, thank you very much to Red 10 People Development. Without you, we couldn't do the podcast. Thank you as well to Wrexham-based band Hypnotic for the music, the stings we use in the show. Nath, next up, Vancouver. I'll see you there.
See you there.
Wrexham AFC podcast with Nathan Salt and Rich Bay.